Sorry, didn't let you. Hey, everyone, this is just to let you know we're going to start in 5 minutes. So, yeah, as you were. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the third installment of Future Poem guest curation of the Segue reading series. Really happy everyone's here. Today we'll be hearing from Imani Elizabeth Jackson and Emily Simon, which is great. Yeah. My name is Aiden. I'm managing editor at Future Poem, and just some quick thank yous. Thanks to James and Lonely from Segue and everyone at Artist Space for having us here. And yeah, thanks to Imani and Emily for being here. Yeah, I'm going to introduce Imani. This is, yeah. So there are some poets whose work I closely associate with silence. I don't mean the kind of silence that grows from a sense of absence, but the kind that comes from presence, so vast and so simple that realizing it is a matter of accepting that we can't determine exactly what it is that is present. And the distinctions between presence and absence completely fall away. It's a loud silence, yet never abrasive, poised. Silence is a particular term to describe Imani's work with language, with sound, and at times with song. It means to me that the language takes account of silence, beckons silence, and makes space for it. Another word I'd associate is timeless or outside of time. Imani's work in Flag, which is forthcoming from Future Poem in the fall, is echoing over centuries, across voices that have seen and lived them, a grace that might be found in brackish as it shuffles in and out of estuaries that have existed longer than there have been eyes to see them. When I read Flag, I'm in the past at the same time as the past is in me in the present. Yeah, I'm so looking forward to hearing Imani right now, so please welcome Imani.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Aiden, for that introduction. Thank you, Aiden and Dan and everyone at Future Poem for inviting me to this and for curating what has looked like a really beautiful run of readings. I wish that I could be here for all of them, but grateful to be here today and to be reading with Emily. I am going to start with something that I started writing yesterday, which is really exciting because I've had an extremely hard time writing over the past year. Like it's been at a near standstill. So this is definitely not, it's nowhere near finished. It's definitely the seeds of probably many things or maybe nothing, but it felt important to get it out. And also, I don't know, I guess maybe in some ways I was thinking of it, though I don't know how much you'll be able to hear it in this, but I just want to express my solidarity with and appreciation for the many students who have been occupying their universities, especially Columbia. It's just been really beautiful to see the ways that young people are really trying to stand for something, trying to stand for the people of Palestine, particularly the people of Gaza. And so I express my solidarity with them. This doesn't have a title. This morning I dreamt of my grandmother. She was, as usual, the grandmother that I remember from pictures taken before I was born, verging on elderly, plump-faced and quiet, with a hint of mischief running beneath her still surface. It had been some time since I'd seen her in my dreams, and she died 9 years ago, so it delighted me to wake up and carry her with me that way through the day. In the shower, I drifted into memories of her. Having spent most days of my childhood with my grandmother, the first memories that I go to when thinking of her are rarely my own, but instead are some passed down to me by my father, my aunts, my uncle, and cousins. There were the memories of the times in the house on Wentworth where a fibby neighbor would come up to visit with my grandmother, regaling her with stories at the kitchen table. My grandmother would sit there grinning quietly and amused, hiding her incredulity as the neighbors' tales stretched the limits of both truth and imagination. I imagine she must have thought that sometimes it is important to just let someone get the story out, no matter how factual, in addition to it being entertainment that she could pay for with nothing but her time. Contrast this with her ire with one of my cousins, who has told me of a time that she was caught in a lie, an action my grandmother punished by washing my cousin's mouth out with soap, daring her to do it again. Another memory of her that I have acquired from my aunts, the time in his late teens that my father was arrested and taken to the precinct down the street on 51st, where my quiet grandmother came and raised hell for hours until he was released. I go to these memories, thankful to have them, and agitated that I did not experience them firsthand. Yes, even the mouthful of soap. It is possible to feel a tinge of jealousy or odd forlornness when confronted with the fact that some of your loved ones will always outpace you in knowing each other, or some of your loved ones will have always known a place longer than you've had a relationship to it. There is a scene in a film that I love in which the younger daughter goes to her mother, mournful that her older sister has known their mother longer. The mother meets this fact with what feels to me like a poor consolation. "My love," she says, "this is just how time works." And I feel an urge to intercede and protest on the daughter's behalf through the screen, though I don't know what such an intercession would consist of. I don't remember what happens next in the scene, but the daughter's distress often resonates with me when I think of my own familial and spatial relationships. For example, my grandmother and her children, or the house my father and his 8 siblings grew up in. I have spoken of my grandmother, so perhaps I will turn to the house now, which, like her, no longer exists on this physical plane. The house on Wentworth, which my grandfather fixed up with painted yellow and tended the garden of between his mail shifts. This house no longer exists. One can no longer enter, climb the many steps upstairs, sit on the couch in the front room beside the piano, walk back past the bedrooms, the living room, the dining room into the kitchen, where one's mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, friend might be standing and cooking, or sitting and shelling peas, or sitting and removing juicy fruit from one's braids, or sitting and weeping to Tamala Man on the radio. This house, which sat near the eastern edge of Inglewood, at one time amid many homes, then eventually at the edge of a highway. When my father was a child in the late 50s, the neighborhood changed. As it was happening in many places, a highway was built right through, and my grandparents' house was left to sit at the edge of a gaping hole 4 blocks wide, all of which would, in time, be filled with concrete, painted lanes, on-ramps and off-ramps, the trolley, and then the red line. The Garfield exit would come up just beside the house, and then I, decades later, would find myself at every possible occasion pointing as I came off that ramp, saying, "Look, this is where my father grew up. Yes, right there, beside the pink church that everyone hated, where there is now that patch of grass and a trailer." But before the construction of the Dan Ryan and after the raising of the blocks, my father was young and adventurous, and he played with his friends atop this raised earth and then beside the gaping hole in the ground. My father has told me of some of these excursions. They would group and strategize, build houses and construct moats, act as pint-sized saboteurs to the construction equipment fleet. One scene pours forth into my mind. My father will tell me about how the neighborhood children would sometimes construct a pond there in the raised ground. The pond would fill with rainwater or water they'd brought over, and the children would bring life to it. Small animals, small plants, makeshift structures at the edge of the still water. And they too would play at the periphery in their precariously made houses and lookout points. Times over, they would construct this pond, and times over, the construction crew would destroy it. Another, one evening as they played, before the crew began to lock up the equipment, one of my father's friends climbed his way up a bulldozer, curious of how it worked. He opened the gas tank, curious again. He found a match in his pocket. He struck it to peer inside. He dropped the burning match into the tank, which, by some grace, was empty, which is to say that they survived. I'm going to read some excerpts from some different parts of Flag. I'm going to start off with some excerpts from the first poem in the book, Landmouth. Certain facts stand. The speed of a river determines the speed at which a rock becomes a river rock. It is not the river's water alone that determines the speed. It is not the river's water alone that weathers the rock. The sediments the water carries carry the process. The sediments weather the rock, which at one point prior will have tumbled down jagged and whole to the bed or the bank of the river. Each of these materials remains whole: the water, the rock, the sediment. Each of these materials parts off. So far I've called it weathering, but it's also termed abrasion. The sediments are abrasive to the rock, and the weathered bits, broken off from their source, flow with the water downstream until they rest. And then they are the floodplain, the beach sand, the delta, the mud in the estuary, the silt at the banks and in the mouth. Many rocks are, crudely put, the result of the compression of dead matter. Those rocks, at some point in their lives as such, and by which many is not understood to be life, but inanimacy, non-feeling, incapacity for thought, will eventually be hit with enough of another type of matter to become granular again. Perhaps in this way, a word is a rock, a gathering of living in its inevitable dispersal. A word in a mouth, or draining from the tip of a pen, or the pressing of a keyboard, being hit and hit and hit and hit, and made to make sense. Making sense, being lived upon, this word rock in the mouth, making sensation. Sometimes there are no words. A lake is such when a river has flown where the land has been higher on all sides. Rarely is land perfectly flat. As such, an inclination to southness, always aiming for the biggest basin. Does all water wish to contain salt? Merger is a process and a practice. What distinguishes instinct from pressure or pull? I forgot about the rain, how the rain fits in, and the underground aquifers. The water table is landed liquid seeping up and south. Sometimes there are no words. Some of us can be traced by how we arrived, which way up or down. Some of us don't remember, simply can't. And what of flags? I refuse the immediate meaning. I wrestle the word down to the ground and find life seeping up. Wild iris, marsh herb calamus, fabric signal, the tail of some dogs, the tail of some deer, something rippling or wagging, object for attraction, stone suitable for pavement. To lay such stones, they say it's for allegiance. My aunt thinks skin. I'm looking to a porous and fluid border where the boundary cracks and green pours through. Herb to mouth, to quilt, to stone. Water tucking into the bends, all this motion fills in, to flag or hang loose, to tire, decline, to hail, raise a concern, lost steadiness, oh love, greening earth, to mark for remembrance and return. Okay, let's try my technological skill. I'm gonna, I never finished it, or I haven't finished it yet. I shouldn't say never, because that hasn't come. But I haven't yet finished something. I was at some point trying to create a mood for the title poem of Flag, which is Flag. And like many people, I'm in the habit of just taking videos on my phone. And there was a while that I was constantly back and forth between Providence, where I worked, in New Haven, where I lived for love, not for school. I worked at Brown. I gotta be honest about that. But I was constantly back and forth on Amtrak, and was always just like astonished and in awe of the marshes that I would pass by and just the way that the light would hit at the times of my train rides. And eventually I also remembered that, if your eye is closed, then the light still, like I just like became more conscious of the fact that light was still hitting my eye, like, and so I started filtering my camera that way just to see what would happen, and thought I would see how I could layer these experiences in the way that it felt to layer experience in writing the poem. So I'm going to make you watch a little bit of it, and then I'll keep reading.
Excerpt from Flag. My banner frays itself, though it is new to my life, from the inside and not an edge, and thus it forms internal edges, which I hope to stitch together once more with appropriate thread. I write to my friend, and sometimes she does not reply, though I know she's seen. Insofar as I listen to everything and fail often at concise description and response, I understand. When my friend showed me an image, I was able to see that a landscape can be a portrait, and every portrait's instance a line cast out. The sea, in their image, rolled velvet. It was not a wave. An image of a wave supposes its motion, but I now saw the stillness of a crease. Love expresses tide, linked like chain to change, leaving sense to favor sense, to move between a line, as favor to the stream, as poison leaves. Eucalyptus, eyelid, elide. The mirror rests on the floor, vertically, lean against a wall, and expands the feel of the room, permitting a light to open, a light by which today I perceived the mirror's flaws, a rippling set of streaks set deep in the glass behind the reflective surface. And I noticed too its quick collection of dust atop the glass, especially apparent in the glass's lower half, which I have passed over with a cloth, which is sometimes a napkin and others a rag, and today an aid to the mirror, within which I am able to see, in daylight or with the aid of a lamp, the distinctions of my blemishment, which run, I see, happily, the lengths of me, in accordance with my form. The mirror leans longly against a wall, mirroring the shape of several texts adorning the room. My banner has been a cheesecloth and a rag. My banner has hung at the window. Capacious form gives way to shape utility of late, and I am standing off in the wash of the beach. A rose and flee, flow filling to feel, in light, find thee, a few remains. Oh, that I would be a rose field, opening a flaw. We grew at an edge of branches. We singed in land's rain and ray and raiment. The sluice will crack open soon, concurrent to the break of the stream. With the sun, I left away toward sleep and come back bloomed.
Lately, I am preoccupied with flimsy boats, the shape of them and the fear I have of open water, which overwhelms me when I'm in it. Always it's cutting me somewhere in my lower half. That is, the ocean's hard materials are cutting me at my heels, my ankles, my knees. Today I studied a photo of a precarious tent with thin cotton for cover, some sticks that might fall over, and the tent was incidental. The photo was of a man. He stood by the sea, smiling, the tent atop a flat rock, and I thought of certain objects used to warn off thieves, their careful and flimsy arrangement. And I thought of the beach in Florida, buried wind, the impotence of some objects. I could have lived there, I do live there. In some sense, it's one point of departure. I would like to live usefully. Present conditions fail that possibility, and I give way to capacity. My mother used to enter people with a camera, tiny and sterile, through the rectum or the throat. She'd see them, loop their flaws. They'd sit upright and thank her. Land. The gut came like tide. Flesh falls towards shiftless sleep. It's a faulty arrangement. Most streams run concurrent. Here, here, to a flaw. In fact, you may make it up. You may be, and I, a love fallen into. Staked in situation, I plant. I might be eucalyptic. I might be allied to land. My country is coincidental. My friend is hardwired for opacity, and sometimes I write to her or think to write to her. My banner is a shawl, multifunctional as a towel and sack. I like to cloak myself in color, any color that would draw me. This contrasts with my previous insistence on neutral dress. My friend, a rose lake in an open boat set, taking on memory, shade ebbs with time. Oil top, dilute again. Other extractions would yield a concrete or an absolute. This morning, I watched water gather more water, speed toward shore, gather surface, rise, break on itself. I lived off a wave, my own. Lays laps in green against the sun I go out askew. A most fragile scene of east. Where I live is a shifting line. No one has hurt me more than residually. The bridge will break soon. I don't live there anymore. The moss and lichen will fall off as poison leaves, coast filled with liquid coast seeping out the line. Reciprocity reigns, assuming it's for returning trust to touch, rain. He lived long, the dream a chain, the line a link, our heads clearly obstructing paths, rain. Fog landing green, a frame for feeling, readjustment to stream, constant and slight. Oh, to be blue-gray, green with grace, I suppose the flight might fall. Love expresses tide, linked like chain to change, leaving sense to favor sense, to move between a line as favor to the stream, to tide the stream's address, to bring, to flex the weave, to long the frame and float, to rose, to be, and having been, go, out, with sun, to song, rung, out, to push, and land, coast, leave, after it's gone. It will continue to break, and soon sing, elated by time, after the fact and its failure, the sight will falling shine, a stoned flaw, and so green, grain, blue, we fall off. My grandmother's home is unapparent. The frame was desiccated, and flames licked the structure to ash. In a photograph where the house stood, there is now grass. The land came back, I mean. It may pass along the line. I never lived there, but tided the well, awaiting poisons dissolve, to wash and sink from memory, and in it, place arose. Eucalyptic, I spring, I shout. Sometimes we go outside. In a photograph, my grandmother pins a cloth to a line. She looks into the camera, catching my gaze. Around her head is a kerchief shielding her hair, and nothing is fragile, and the light has some grit. Cloth hangs, and the photograph's horizon expresses her, readjusting me from memory to sight. My family, my friends, my lovers frame, delineate the bounds of my form, against which I do not strain. To shift, as engagement with wind, in concert and opposition with the container of a page, itself constructed in accordance with tradition. I learned to favor my sense of stretch. Flow fills feeling in the bridge from the sun. My sense of the line is distributary, departing stream downwardly, capturing more and more of the flow. Being in land, I must be so careful of tidal bores, the suddenness of their height, increased by a wave's reflective qualities, its capability of breaking over the bank. We grew at an edge of branches. We singed, we sing inland's rain and ray and raiment. The sluice will soon crack open, concurrent to the break of the stream. The sluice will soon crack open, concurrent to the break of the stream. With the sun I left away. With the sun I left away towards sleep and come back bloom with the sun I left away towards sleep and come back bloom. Thank you.
Wow, thanks so much, Imani. Before we take a 5-minute break and then hear from Emily, there were some things I forgot, which were, if you're on Zoom, please consider donating to Artist Space and Segue Foundation. And if you didn't donate at the door, please do so. All of those funds go to our readers. And we also have books for sale. So please, go see what's up to Rye and get a book. And we'll be back here in 5. Thanks.
Hello, hello. We're going to be doing a soft starting. Please get to your seats. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan. I'm the events manager for Future Poem. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight and for staying. Imani, Elizabeth Jackson, that was fucking amazing. I don't know if I can swear on here, but it's not like Jimmy Fallon, so we're good. But thank you so much for coming out. And for, if you want to purchase books, they're right over there. I'd be remiss if I, as an events person, did not mention that there is a Flood Columbia for Gaza happening at 9 p.m. today at 116th in Amsterdam. If you want to join me and some fellow folks coming up there, just let me know after the show. And I am here to introduce Rob, who's going to introduce Emily Simon. Rob Bitterman cannot be with us right now. He is in some castle in Italy teaching, but we love Rob. Rob's one of the curators for Future Poem and apparently a castle goer. But we're saddened that he can't be here right now, but his introductions have been kind of a viral thing among the Segue community, so give a listen. And oh, wrong way. This is hard. Damn, this is hard. I don't know. Does it turn now? Yeah, amazing, awesome.
Hi, Segue. So, here I am, about to go onto my balcony, thousands of miles away in Italy, thinking about Emily Simon's poetry. And it makes sense because it travels well, because it's very much inside your head poetry. And inside your head travels well. No escaping it. Emily Simon's writing is the opposite of sleepwalking. It's in a constant state of amazement. I could think of a few other poetry books that fit a similar description, that constant state of amazement, but few books that present it so casually, as if everyday life simply comes to Emily Simon in complete sentences. In her debut book, In Many Ways, recently published by Winter Editions, she writes, "I like to think of rest as a form of getting ready. The form of readiness of that in your head internal monologue carries the writing throughout, somehow easy and heavy all at the same time." She writes, pain, pleasure, I don't know. Now, are we talking about an apple on the table, the pandemic, love, labor, self-doubt, the confidence of profound insight, all that? So I'm here and I'm there. Please welcome to Segue and Artist Space, Emily Simon.
I'm still looking at him too. That was very, very cool. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Future Poem. Thank you, Artist Space. Thank you, Segue. I have a couple things in front of me. Thank you, Imani, Elizabeth Jackson, too. This is a very thing. I mean, he could stay. I'm just kidding. Okay, so I do want to start with a statement of sorts. And let me turn my phone. I hate reading on my phone, but it is what it is right now. So I would like to actually share a brief excerpt from a talk that Shuman Basar gave at a conference in London recently. Zizek calls the recent geopolitical era hot peace, a state of permanent hybrid war in which military interventions are declared under the guise of peacekeeping and humanitarian missions. As Naomi Klein put it, ever since 9/11, and with environmental disasters occurring close up, not far away, rich countries have been seeking security without peace and justice. Israel, which does not recognize any international legal framework, is a neo-colonial microcosm of so-called security without peace and justice. It's created a mirror world where words now mean their opposite. Ceasefire means supporting terrorism. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Aggressor is victim. There is no limit to the violence that can be perpetrated in the name of peace. So my heart is heavy tonight, but I am hopeful too. While there is the relentless perversion of language, the violent abuse of terms, there are also future and near future zones of peace and justice, liberated otherwises made possible through language and collective action, such as the powerful Gaza encampment on Columbia's campus right now. And I am a graduate of the Columbia MFA program, so I'm very proud of those students and those protesters. I'm grateful to be here tonight to celebrate poetry, the radical imagination, remembering, witnessing, and testimony that poetry calls us to. So, bam, okay. I'm gonna read some new work, and I'm a little nervous about that. So I'm gonna read this new work first, and then I will read a little bit from my book, In Many Ways, which came out with winter editions last year. But first, the new work, which is similarly fragmented. Many people play at living without ever becoming fully alive. Take relaxation as a muscular state of equilibrium, a sense of weightlessness, perfect accord and harmony, a masterful feeling harnessed by the best athletes, musicians, and survivors of childbirth. One might go on forever in total relaxation. Observation, another form of rest, which means undivided attention, which unites the body and mind, which harbors peace and joy, mastery. The goal is to erect a sanctuary in one's own mind. It could take half an hour or more to create such a room and make it familiar. I told a good friend to stand on a pillar of anger. No, it was a podium of anger, a solid base. I said, feel your power and don't apologize. Speak from the podium. I've been thinking about getting more serious. Up until now, I've had a dog-like romping spirit. I laughed at my own pain and profundity. I couldn't cry in private. I spent forever in the meadow and the dirt. I followed curious smells, rolled in the grass, pissed into the wind, and I got dog-tired. I think serious means by no coincidence or accident. A few years ago, Lynn mailed me a handmade beaded bracelet. It asked, "Where am I standing?" A serious message made graver by the playfulness of its gesture. Recently, I've been lightly considering what it means to be horizontal, what I do in bed, how I go down flat. There are suggestions of submission, communion, dreaming, despair, waiting, boredom, subjectivity, ideas of you and me. But conversation is the only art I've been practicing with any diligence or regularity. I'm taking new risks all the time, and I think I'm becoming famous among those who talk to me. The written word has become a kind of compromise. I suspect the flattening of my voice the moment it enters the frigid container of a sentence. Flopping around at home sick for a couple days, I find myself ogling the books on the shelves, spoiled for choice. I don't want to be here filling idle time, and I couldn't possibly choose a book to read. The CEOs won't tell you this, but everyone takes naps, Tiffany tells me. When I was getting started, I used to sleep in my car with the seat back. I kept it a secret, but the CEOs do it too. They have couches in their offices. They don't tell you, it's a secret. I've told Tiffany, who is visiting from Texas, that I'm writing about lying down, although the writing has become distracted by some winding interludes. She's gripping my shoulders. I sleep for 10 minutes every day, she says, on my back. I don't sleep on my side. I cross my arms over my chest. I sleep like a mummy. How much time have I spent lying down? My idle time, my mortal nausea, compromises my taste for art. I open a good book, and almost as soon as the language comes in, I encounter interference, my own voice talking back. I was passing over the river, trying to read on the train. I kept grazing the same few lines, looking up from the book and down again. I couldn't find a rhythm in the landscape. It either exceeded my comprehension or its creativity made no sense at all. What does God know about inertia? Its opposite. My headaches started occurring with greater frequency. I couldn't remember the difference between a tension headache and a migraine, so I called up the neurologist. The office said the doctor had not only left the practice, but he had also disappeared. He could be anywhere. At the beach, a low-flying plane streamed an ad for antifungal foot cream. All I could see was this foot where the sun should have been. Some feel more desirous when they are alone. Some are patiently curious in their longing. With readerly intent, some enjoy peace, even intimacy in solitude. It's delirium for me, alone with my visions. I take up nasty arguments with myself to stave off solipsism. Such problems of mind simulate matters of ethical concern. I'm not interested in information. I'm alert to my choices and to leaps in quantum time. I'm afraid of my own happiness, all laid out like berries in summer. And if I regard the world as strange, then I can take up more subjects in it. I'm a more productive artist when I'm confused, alienated, surprised, or agitated. This can happen anywhere. You over there, that thing, other than, apart from, even around me, I look at you. On the other end of my looking is you, caught, like on the tip of a lance. This displacement gets me going. Suspicion and fear come along, admiration and longing too, when I find myself in company or on the other side. I want to wrap my arms around in many winding circles. I want to take you into my stretchy body. I keep having this thought. Some people are too hot. The devil is symmetrical. Then half asleep in bed last night thinking, a poem is a room. The language wanders around erotically, like from one bedroom to another, between acts, swinging its tassels. A woman on screen demonstrates how to fold a tissue into sharp triangles. She dabs at the corners of a tearful eye without disturbing her glamorous complexion. Such a little tissue, which stops the tears before they fall. A stranger sends a private photo album of their sunglasses collection and asks me to rank them. Somewhere in the atmosphere, sitting on a cloud, a man asks me about my life. I explain from the beginning how I got to be so neglectful of my own pleasure. He nods along with the patience and solemnity of eternity. Scenery passes beneath us, oceans first, then sand, grass, ice, and snow, mountains, lakes, swimming pools, parking lots, rooftops. He watches me all the time, searching my eyes and mouth. I talk for a long time or for no time at all. The difference is imperceptible. We hop easily from thinning clouds over to newly formed ones, and each time we move over, I settle into a comfortable seated or reclining position before resuming my talk. There is such an unearthly, anesthetizing quiet in these clouds. I describe my relationship with my mother. It always goes back to the mother or father, I say, and he reads this on my lips. He closes his eyes, but not to sleep. He feels so peaceful and satisfied. I turn my talk to television, gossip, food, music, fashion, whatever I like, and then I start describing the animals I used to see on walks through the neighborhood. Dogs, cats, squirrels, rats, pigeons. Sympathetic puffs of clouds form themselves into the shape of such dogs, cats, squirrels, rats, pigeons, and then they assemble a kind of diorama. We laugh together at the scene's absurdity and innocence. Sometime later, we will have passed so far over the land, and I will have unburdened myself so completely that finally I will come into heaven. Squirrels are thoughts in the forest of feelings. Fish are thoughts in the sea of feelings. Clouds are thoughts in the sky of feelings. Garth says you do not have to know a secret to pass it on. Pure style, unsentimental and impenetrable, like a rock. One can be gregarious and without affection, heavy and untempted toward the romance of organized religion, school, fashion, or love, inspiring but not progenitive, sparkling, diamond-like, liberated from the repetition of the metropolis, surrounded, glittering, mad, and asexual, spiritual. A city in crisis is a dreamlike place, a carnivalesque imitation. Anything is possible here, and everything always happens. The specter of violence intermixes with the real thing so many times a day, one hardly knows the difference. I hosted a party last night. Then I was pregnant, lost in the city, flying over trees. I was murdered and became a ghost. I argued with my favorite people. I got trapped in the bathroom again. I took a nap. The waves were choppy and full of fish. The bathroom had no privacy. An ice sculpture regenerating itself. Someone forgot to call my name to the stage. A woman boxed my ear outside the hospital as I was strolling by. And this really did happen. But what difference does it make? Her distress was real. I couldn't tell you what she said. I've been ferried over grates by baby angels and roses with mantras on a spree, approached through traffic and reeds, beribboned, well-fed, a woman in a clamshell, having only visited before in dreams in the spirit of change and specificity, with sincerity and pleasure. The best lie about our city is that it's sexy and full of money. A bar in Chinatown, for example, becomes a lustful, fashionable cloud of rumor right inside the burning city. We all go at once, well dressed. Many neighborhoods don't actually exist, but the names are fun to say. The truth is, the city overlooks the bay. Life happens elsewhere. Life happens to farmers. A plot of neat little rows grows a crop for all seasons. Resting, finally, on the grass with my husband, in repose with him in springtime, like two dogs in the park in spring, prostrate on the lawn in the afternoon, like philosophers or models, posing easily like subjects, in a landscape with him, odalisking together, like an together, giving it up for the city people, rolling around, flopping around, showing off on the hill, lying out like exhausted, busy people, me and my husband finally close to the dirt and twigs, the little slope, us two at the center. A fantasy promises not just one, but all future possibilities. It keeps the lights on. Meanwhile, the real thing forecloses on any particulars, on any lovely variable or aspect. The real thing is so singular. At the beach with little Adam, burying trash in the sand for the other to find, picking up rocks, admiring their color, shape, and texture, theatrically chucking these rocks we admired, stomping in the sand around the shoreline, talking about broken toes. I encourage Adam to spare the spider webs as he goes on hurling stuff. I tell him the spiders are our allies in nature. I like Daddy Longlegs, he says. They have long legs. I once thought of childhood with indifferent comfort. While my parents spoke of good health and good luck, I thought, of course. Now I wonder and wish about childhood, nature, books, friends, pleasure, even hygiene and housekeeping. I am devout in my desire, which is ruminative and endless. I remember the mantra from Gerard Manley Hopkins, there lives the dearest freshness, deep down things. And shamefully, as I've gotten older, I've begun to consider exactly what is buried beneath this earth. I try making lists. Cold, bored, waiting. Bangs. Foul smell everywhere. Spent. Screaming children. Wrong shoes. Bad book. My money. Puddle on Norman and Wyckoff. Time to kill. Haven't met the deductible. Public life. Google Maps. People on vacation. What to say. Eating. Vacation. Dust. The complaints themselves are procreative. The list goes on until an absurd giddiness takes over and the threat of apocalypse retreats. And it isn't just environmental catastrophe. It's the disjunctive surround sound, the uncanny facsimiles, incongruities. I can find my own fantastic power in the congregation of disparate things. Whatever is frustrating, inconvenient, insulting, impossible, becomes a darling token of interest. Whatever at all, I bring to heal. Wild promises, chomping at the bit. It all smells of food. If you're sick of the news, then try embracing culture, the dulling low stuff. The White Castle looks the French bakery right in the eye. The trees sway animatedly. They glow orangish for spooky season. Purple flowers adorn the leaves in complementary perfection. Enrich and diminish are equal opposites, I explained, and the students understood how one expands and enlivens while the other thwarts, shrinks. What is the point of all this? Asked a friend recently. The whole market is only refuse and leftovers. The poem isn't saleable. I almost give up on poetry, like travel, groceries, medication, and voting. I anticipate my expulsion from the realm of poetry, and still I suppose myself over and over. Inspired by shrewd visions and simple souls, I can lose nothing. I am mortified here, possessing newness. I earn profits everywhere. The more I give, the more remains in me. How's the time? How are we on time? Do we have a little time? Oh, okay. Okay. So I do, I want to share what is, I'll admit, probably my favorite part, or I don't know, the part of this book that, to me it feels like it's the end of the book, but it's sort of the center of the book, and it's the postscript. And that's all, yeah, I'm gonna read it. Okay. Postscript. Scratch that, I'm just reading it. Replace every but with and, a form of self-care that doesn't agree with our grammar. Everywhere is a good place to look, the font on the awning of a residential building in Manhattan. Scarcity model, it's expensive to diagram a sentence. The economy of humility, dear poets, please advise. What I need is a languorous gaze that isn't gross. I suspect it might be you, God, or the good who sees me. Must be a domestic enormity, and two, a kind of supplicant but earthy, like a piece of fruit. She lays herself bare, and so will you. See also in the confessional tradition, anxious bench. How to repair the face of a God who's beyond reproach. When we speak, I can't resist the urge to touch exactly what I mean. Yellow is the color of curling pages and minutia. Explosives, the sun. You turned the day yellow, that's all I remember. The parking lot outside, the lampposts, and their raw-edged circumferent beams. Every day, the weather. The city is plastered with diegetic text, the park with diegetic music. The ads, the storefronts are a part of the script, and the story is a musical. Your brain takes pictures while you're thinking of other things and shows them to you later at the grocery store in the vegetable aisle. Some things you summon, you recall them with a crowbar. There's a store at Newark International Airport called America. At the bookstore, "Oh, my darling, you have such a smile," a woman said to the author photo, a sorry for everything you know. The first flock of pigeons was released as doves. Heaven, I am greedy. It'll be years before we meet the baby. What I'm talking about is the difference, the distance between romance and strategy. When the baby comes, we'll be a different kind of couple. We want irrational proximity, the greatest privilege of information. We have championed such technologies as photography and the police. The image refuses access to the subject's interiority, while it also invites scrutiny and speculation. The human subject has no substance. The promise of discovery is ubiquitous, cheap, and mean. Memory, the walking imagination. The grass is long, I'm lying out. The real space of the human imaginary, the socially coded body as a technology of entrapment. When the cops charge forward and we turn to run, I hear nothing, feel nothing. I had made a decision not to pray for my body. Desire spreads like contagion everywhere, the deflowering and perversion of dignified offices. The codes are thin. She knows she's been exasperating. She's exasperating her own lineage. Perhaps she can have it both ways. The porch overlooks the golf course. Some walks end where they began. The lost character traverses backwards in time to retrieve or remake the self. Virginity can be faked. The murders go up with the ice cream sales. Nature, dreamscape, resting place, a place to die or to live in longing with desire that charts an unbreachable distance. I want to roll out of the car into traffic, or at least you won't hear from me all day, not once tomorrow. Sometimes I think about your penis to fall asleep. The story features a shiny diamond core, characters, and a plot that follows its own suggestion. It belongs to a galloping history of fiction that furnishes this world with wanting, fabulous exertions of the self in formal style. New York, if I have anything against it, it's that everybody, even my own friends, looks so good. Anybody who pretends to be a picture is fucking with nature. This is real animal life. This is the news, hilarity, and tragedy. Law. If I could speak with the power of judges, I would say that the law does not harbor life. It hovers above hot sand. Purity, let's face it. My nerves are the fuel. I see a man behind my eyes who laughs through his teeth. My nerves are the fuel. Who laughs into my crying, crazy eyes. I've been so nervous about the exponential, the metaphorical, the interruptive, the sweetness, reeking of bad meat like spotted liver, like romance. Some days I dress my ripe age. Otherwise, I double down on time's swift procedure. Sensation follows sensation. At the tincture and tobacco store, looking for a radical pairing to elegize my embarrassment, I imagine the most powerful person in the world can disappear pain. Planet Evil doesn't hurtle toward Earth like you'd expect. It is highly intelligent, hyper-responsive, and above all, seductive. We die in thrall to it and to our own fear of death. I record all my rehearsals. Imagine who is listening. Thank you so much.
Can we have another hand for both of our readers? Thanks so much, everyone, for coming out. There are some copies of Emily's book on the table. Please buy some. Flag by Imani Elizabeth Jackson is forthcoming first thing this fall. Pre-order will go up in July, so follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our newsletter, et cetera, et cetera. Yes. Next week, we'll be here with Stefan Lawrence and Manuel Paul Lopez, both future poem authors whose books came out in 2023. Mill about, mingle as we do. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming.